Welcome to the Life, Love and Intimacy Coaching Program. This is week 4, finally the keys to understanding men. And this week is all about answers to your questions about what men really think and feel about relationships, sex and intimacy. And I'm so excited because it's not just me sharing with you today. I've actually got a special guest male speaker in to answer questions. So it'll be an interview and an exploration by both of us to answer your questions. So we all know that there are differences between men and women, but in this class, what we're going to be doing is exploring what really inspires men on the deepest level. So let me introduce you to our guest male speaker. His name is Mo Latin. And aside from his professional background and the work that he's done with men, he's also my man. He's my beloved, and we've been in an intimate relationship for 3 years now. So we also work together when we coach couples. So I'll coach the woman, he'll coach the man, and we'll coach both of them together. Now, Mo started studying relationships, behavior and psychology 25 years ago, and he's trained as a coach in coaching, NLP, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, and he's coached and worked with men from around the world and couples. He's also studied and worked with some of the best relationship experts in the world. He's also active in leading men's groups and is a practitioner of everything that we're talking about. So just as I only teach what I live myself within my life and my intimacy, Mo also does the same. So he studies and teaches as he coaches men and couples. So the first thing I want to do is welcome Mo to the call. Welcome, Mo.
Thanks, Lisa. It's fantastic to be on the call. I always enjoy doing these calls with you where we get to explore the questions that your ladies send in, and I get to share my experience of life and the experience that I get to understand from the conversations and work that I do with other men in the men's groups and in the training that I experience with them, and when I go and work in men's groups with other teachers. It's fascinating work. It's going ever deeper into layers of understanding men in themselves and also men in relationship to women in the world. So I know there's a lot we can bring to this call. I'm excited about exploring that with you.
Cool. Okay, so what I wanted to do as a starting point is to review masculine and feminine, and this is something that the ladies have explored already leading up to today's call. But just as a review, a quick review, so that we can explore understanding men within the context of masculine and feminine. So obviously the masculine is the part of us that is directional and focused, purposeful, outcome-oriented, has what we call focal vision or focused vision, and is mainly interested in getting from point A to B, is interested in achieving outcomes. And on a deeper level, because the masculine is fundamentally inspired by its quest for freedom, it's good to have an understanding that all of those things that are more masculine traits, like the satisfaction of kicking a goal or ticking something off the to-do list or making a killing in financial reward or creating great success by achieving outcome after outcome, that all of those feel very fulfilling for the masculine, because in those moments where those outcomes are achieved, there's a sense of freedom. Whereas the feminine is obviously the part of us that is all about connection and flow and relationship and energy and life force and love, especially love. You know, we've talked about the fact that the underlying yearning for the feminine is love, whereas the underlying quest for the masculine is freedom. And so what we have explored is obviously that all of us have masculine and feminine within us, and that most of us actually associate more, or we have what's called a feminine essence or a masculine essence, which means we identify more with one or the other. Clearly, all of the ladies on this call identify more with the feminine because they were attracted to the language that brought them into this course. So, of course, when we say masculine and feminine, or men and women, we're using the words interchangeably, which in a sense is the same here as we're talking about understanding men. So Is there anything more that you'd like to add to that understanding of masculine in the context of this review?
Really, what we're talking about here is a common understanding for both sides, a shared experience of life between masculine and feminine, between men and women. And that is that we are essentially opposite in our essence and in our core. And although this call is about understanding men, it's important to remember that men have immense difficulty understanding women as well.
Mm.
It's actually really challenging on both sides. So really, as a pre-frame to all of this, we need to really set a clean frame of understanding and compassion and humor and love for all this, because it's a really challenging area for everyone throughout their entire lives to understand the opposite sex, from those first moments, well, from before puberty, but especially from those first moments of puberty and attraction to the opposite sex, and it all starts to get emotional and messy and tangled and
Confusing.
confusing. So, there are many, many elements to this, and the reason for us to really lay out some of the opposites that we're all familiar with is just to kind of set that frame as a basis for many of the other points that we'll talk about throughout the call. So, as we'll know from our experience of men and women in life, women tend to be more emotional than men. And that's one of the things that women find most challenging, is that men can very often be labeled or prejudged as being non-emotional, which can be an immense challenge in an interaction with a woman, where the man is essentially taking a witness view of what's going on, which can almost feel detached to a woman
Yeah.
rather than being engaged, and the woman can have an experience within herself and within the conversation or the exact present moment then with a man, that she's emotionally engaged, she's feeling the pain, discomfort, joy, whatever it is that's happening at the moment, and he's just not in there. He's not engaged. He's not with it. He's detached. He's on the outside. He's like a wooden block. Um, you know, men have different degrees of response at different moments of the day and different times in their lives, and every person's different. We all know that, but we're talking about the essential opposites here and the essential differences. So beyond that, one of the other differences is that in those conversations where women are becoming emotional or being in the flow, being expressive, that engages the relationship more. That engages the want and need from the woman to be in relationship. Whereas to men aren't essentially that interested in relationship. Men are more interested in what is essentially their mission in life rather than the relationship with other people. Obviously, we have to have relationships with other people. There has to be a relational interaction, an exchange of emotion, an exchange of information, and perhaps even to achieve a certain outcome on a mission, if you like, or a purpose. But essentially, a man isn't really that interested. A man in his masculine is not really that interested in relationship. Whereas for women, it's all about relationship. It's about connection. It's about communication. A man just wants to do his thing and get on with it, reach the outcome, tick the box, and relax. It's done. It's over. Doesn't want to get involved in conversations. Doesn't want to talk about stuff that doesn't seem relevant. He just wants the information to do the task, to do the job, take into account where people are at, so that can be as a considered part of the equation that he has to make a decision about, but without actually necessarily getting actively engaged in what to him can seem unnecessary conversation, drama, excess, just stuff. It's just like, what's all this stuff that women have to talk about all the time? I often find myself in conversations or on the outside of conversations, I should say, particularly in a kind of family environment or a social environment where the women in the situation are talking away and chatting about God knows what, this, that, and the other. Anything at all. And the men are sitting around generally not conversing as much. And I very often find myself kind of eavesdropping on women's conversations and thinking, why on earth are they talking about that? What's the point?
Mm.
Because for men, it's all about the point.
Mm.
It's what's the point in doing this? What's the outcome? What's the plan? What are we doing at this? What's the agenda? What are we trying to achieve? And for women, there's no achievement in that relationship,
In that
in that
conversation.
conversation. I mean,
Mm.
the achievement is the conversation. It is the connection.
Mm. So I have to pick you up on that because a lot of women might be listening to this and be absolutely horrified
I
at the
get that.
thought,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that men don't want, like I think the words you used aren't that interested about being in a relationship. So if you can explain that further, I think it would be really important because obviously men are in relationship and they do want to be in
Yeah,
a relationship with the woman they love.
absolutely.
So can you explain more about that?
Sure. Well, to go into that further, what I mean by saying men are not interested in relationship is that a man's priority in life is his mission, is his purpose. If he's clear about what he's doing, whether it's his job or a charity he's working for, or whatever it is that he's decided is his thing, it may be studying martial arts.
Or including even being a father or
Absolutely.
the provider of the family. So it's not separate from that. It's you're talking that it's the purpose, the feeling of being driven by purpose.
That's right.
Right.
A sense of purpose, a sense of something that is fulfilling on a deeper level,
Mm.
rather than just the engagement in an immediate conversation or in a relationship.
Which is amazing because from the feminine perspective, to be engaged in that connection is fulfilling on the deepest level because it's facilitating the flow of love. And I think that's what's really important for women to understand about men, that the way they are fulfilled on that deeper level is simply different if they identify more with the
Mm.
masculine. So rather than penalizing them for that or criticizing them, having that understanding makes a huge difference.
It does make a huge difference on both sides,
Mm.
because men also need to understand that for women, relationship is about connection and
Mm.
conversation and communication, whereas communication for men tends more towards an information exchange
And
and
getting to the
and
point.
getting to the point.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, it does involve an assessment of where people are at, an observation, a feeling into where everyone in the room is at, the people who are important to whatever's going on in that
Mm.
moment. It's for consideration. But ultimately, what the man's doing is engaging in that, observing in it, being aware, but pulling out to the outside to make a decision on what the next action step is. Because
Sure.
for men, it's very much about uh, purpose, action, movement forwards, a laser focus on what needs to be achieved,
Mm.
rather than getting engaged in all the stuff that might be happening in the moment. And that can be a real strength, because although women may think, well, he's not really associating with what's going on, he's kind of outside of it. Appreciate this in a different way. Let's say there's a road traffic accident and someone gets hit, someone may even get killed. There's someone in pain on the road. There's perhaps even death around. Some of the things need to be dealt with. It's an emergency situation. If a man was to assess that and get engaged in that and really feel into the pain and the discomfort and the pain of the person who's in pain on the road, the pain of the
Mm.
people who are seeing their loved ones dead there and people trapped and there's a fire, whatever is going on, if he gets engaged in all that and that drama, he's going to be of no use to anyone.
Yes. Absolutely.
So if he's actually able to assess and go, okay, I need to stay calm. I need to be on the outside of this. I need to engage in what's going on actively. I need to feel into the moment. That my strength here is to go, bam, that person there in that car needs to be out of that car in the next 3 minutes, or they're going to burn and die.
Mm.
I can't afford to get engaged in the drama over here of the woman who's just lost her child. I mean, it's horrific.
Yeah.
It's painful. It's
Yeah.
sad. But in that moment, what's important is for him to be clear and crisp and make an important life-saving decision
Mm.
without being engaged and drawn into the drama of the moment.
Yeah.
And that may be an extreme example, but it's exactly the same.
No, but it's great because if you think about, for me as a woman, I'm thinking about firefighters. And, we look at firefighters as being, these big, burly, very masculine feeling men. And that's exactly it. If they were healers and massage therapists who were deeply feeling the people in the burning building, it's not to say that there's not a place for that. It's not to say
Mm.
that a man cannot develop his feminine. That's something that would be good for you to talk about, and that there isn't a place for men who have very well developed feminine for those particular trades. But if you've got a firefighter, you need him to
Mm.
be more identified with the
Yeah.
masculine because you want him to have clarity and a sense of purpose and to be able to cut through, which is what the masculine does, to cut through the fire, to cut through anything that's going on to achieve the outcome of pulling someone from that burning building.
Mm.
So can you explain a little bit more to the ladies about the concept of men identifying more with the masculine and also having different degrees of development of their feminine? Because we often talk about, for us as women, if we're educated and rewarded in our life with love and attention, which is what definitely inspires us to be flexible as we grow. If we have developed our masculine because we're living in a corporate world and working with needing to develop masculine traits for that, or being a single parent where we've got to play both roles, or, for whatever reason we develop our masculine, how is it for men in terms of, obviously you're talking about men who have these traits, so where does it fit in the scale of things with men and having a more developed feminine?
Having the feminine side of any person develop is essential for, well, as women know, for sensitivity to the environment, to others' feelings and emotions, for development of compassion,
Mm,
and so on. So, a man who lacks those things is not as valuable to other women or to other men because there's only certain parts of him that are actually able to express and be of service to him and the environment and the surroundings.
mm,
So it's important for a man, for a more advanced man, for a man who wants to actually advance himself, for his own wants and needs, but also to be of service to the community and to
mm.
his woman and his family and his children. It's important for him to have that sensitivity, so that he's not just
Totally
that
detached, I
totally
guess.
detached
Right.
block of wood that's
Yeah.
insensitive and doesn't have a clue what's going on with his kids when they're upset and can't feel into his woman when she's got stuff going on that she doesn't even understand.
Mm,
It's important for him to have that sensitivity,
mm,
to have degrees of awareness and feel into her or the kids or the situation and get a real sense of what lies beneath,
mm,
and then still have the capacity, whilst being engaged in that on an awareness level, to be outside of that at the same time and make decisions as to the best way forward, which could be a sensitive approach to the situation. It could be that a loving touch is needed. It could be that some real compassionate words are needed,
mm.
or it could be that he just needs to step outside and go, bam, this is what we need to do. Get up now, we're leaving.
Yeah.
And that's him switching from whatever, from one side to the other, from the soft feeling feminine to the sharp, decisive,
Mm.
action-taking masculine in the moment, depending on what he feels the situation calls for. And that's something that's necessary in both sexes.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was just thinking. I mean, same thing for as a woman. It's not. I always say to my women, a lot of them are attracted to this work, and a lot of the ladies who will be listening to this are attracted to this work because they've spent so much time in their masculine that they want to relax back into their feminine because they know that when they do that, they can create more moments that truly fulfill them. And so it is important not just to say, well, I am feminine and therefore that's all of who I am. It's actually embracing all of who we are, masculine and feminine. And what's interesting about this conversation is that the traits that men display that are very masculine are the things that might annoy the crap out of us as women, like that sense of distance or, getting straight to the point, that at times really may annoy us. But actually, when we have an understanding of it, we realize that that same ability to just get to the point and not get involved in the emotional drama of something is actually of benefit to us as well. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, and I think what also is going to happen throughout this call and this conversation is that the women who are listening will begin to relate more and more to their own distinctions around their own masculine and feminine.
Yes.
Will be able to see their masculine will be able to observe where in their life this behavior shows up, and their feminine side will be able to feel the truth of the compassion and sensitivity of the feminine as it actually shows up in their own life and experience, both for themselves and for the men in their lives.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that when we're talking about these differences, we're talking about the most obvious, or you might call them the most extreme, and that everything is on a gradient. So, this thing of men being straight to the point and not engaging in conversation, it's more to paint the picture so then you can see the difference between that and absolute connection, a pointless conversation that women will have purely to connect, and then you can relate to everything in between.
So I think now that we've covered some of those essentials, and there are many other distinctions and elements that we could share as a kind of pre-frame for all the other things we're going to cover. And as we often say when we're planning this call could actually go on for 3 or 4 hours easily. So
this is a 7-day workshop. I mean, there's so much content in here.
So rather than getting hooked into all that, let's just move on to the next question.
Okay, all right. So one of the questions that I often get asked is, why does my man shut down or get angry or try to fix things or run away when I get emotional? Because for women, we want to be able to express how we really feel, but oftentimes we've learned to shut it down because when we express anger, he withdraws, or when we express sadness, he's impatient, or when we express frustration, he gets frustrated back. And so an answer to that question would be hugely valuable to the ladies on this call.
So essentially, men are not that comfortable with emotion. It's not part of their natural center of gravity or tendency for most men. It's not something that is, as you're probably well aware, actively encouraged as part of the male experience. The guys down the pub,
big men don't
over
cry.
a few pints. Exactly. The guys down the pub over a few pints, are talking about the chicks and the beer and the cars and the football. But they don't. I mean, obviously, men get emotional over football, which might seem quite ironic to women, but there's a different reason for that. But yeah, men just don't do emotion very well generally. It's outside their realm of. I was going to say it's outside their realm of experience. Obviously, men experience emotion, but it's not something that comes easily to them to get engaged in and experience from others and also share with others. So an emotional situation for a man can quite often feel stressful. It feels like it's a lot of effort, in my experience, and I know a lot of others men's experience. It feels like a lot of effort to get engaged in something. It's just hassle. It's just like...
So why is that? Is it because you have this impulse to fix it, to be free of it, and therefore it's stressful if there's a whole lot of emotion flying around, but you can't quite seem to... It's kind of like trying to put your hand up and contain the weather, isn't it? Contain the sky full of rain or hail. I mean, you can't. Is that why it's stressful?
Well, this is one of the other things that was in the introduction that we didn't cover, which is that women like to make things really big, and men like to make things really small. Men want the bullet points and the nutshell, and women want the entire 3-volume drama novel.
Which is why we use something like thousands of words and you use a very small percentage of those a day, right?
So if you want to communicate with a man succinctly, you do it in bullet points,
Mm.
A, B, C, whereas women will communicate in immense detail. So that again is perhaps another perspective on emotional expression. A man just wants to express something succinctly and to the point without the drama and emotion, whereas a woman will often exchange information weaved into a
Mm.
conversation that could take 20 minutes, where a man would just go bam, 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 done.
So why do you try and fix it when we get emotional?
Because we want closure. It's
Right.
about closure. For a man, he wants to feel that he can assess the situation, make a decision, offer a solution, apply the solution, and then it's done. It's
And then you're
closed. It's
free of
over.
it.
Then we're free of it. Everyone's free of it. You're serving the
Mm.
moment. You're serving the person who you perceive has a challenge or is in pain. Whereas for a woman, she will most often just want to be heard. She just wants to be recognized, or a child just wants
Mm.
to be recognized for their pain, for their emotion, for their upset in that moment, rather than having some fix it guy come in and go, okay, I see what the problem is. Here's what we
Mm.
can do. We put two screws in here, hit a few nails, apply some glue, and we're done.
And that's so true because oftentimes, as women, we might come home from work and talk about all the problems in the office and this and that and really it's true. We just want to be heard. And to be honest with you, there's a part of us when you jump in and say, "Oh, well, it sounds like Jan needs to to solve that." There's a part of us that gets annoyed or frustrated because it's not about that for us. It's actually about expression of how we feel about something rather than wanting that solution. And in fact, oftentimes, and if all men could understand this, it would be great. Oftentimes, men try to cut it off to solve it and to serve us because they love the woman who's expressing how she's feeling about it. But actually, we end up feeling worse with that because we're being cut off mid-flow. We're in the middle of expressing, and if you jump in too quick, then we've not been able to finish expressing how we felt about it, and then it actually sits in our body longer, which we know doesn't feel good. So,
So, an important point here to remember for both sexes is to come back to compassion again, because we have to remember that in these situations, the man and the woman are both doing their best ultimately. They are wanting to do their best for themselves and for the other person at their highest intention. And we're all learning. We all make mistakes. We all offer our best in the circumstances of what we think is going to best serve the other person and ourselves and so on,
mm,
and to the best of our ability, depending on our needs in the moment, because they may be selfish needs, or they may be shared needs, or they may be just a gift to the other person.
sure.
So there are many elements and variables in this, but ultimately it's just important to remember that the people in the situation are doing their best, and to be a little forgiving and compassionate about that. Not to point fingers, not to blame, not to hang on to it as residue, because that just fouls up things later anyway, as we'll come to later in the conversation. So further to that, as we'll explore a little bit later, drama for a man can be a turn off, can be something that he wants to move away from, whereas actually authentic expression is something he's going to move towards. So it's important to remember that if you are expressing the emotion towards a man, and you're trying to understand why he may withdraw or may not be able to handle it, it
Mm,
may be because that emotion is drama, it's residue, it's not actually authentic feeling in the moment. There may be authentic feeling at the core of it, but there may be a whole heap of other stuff that you're dragging in, that's history, that's about what you perceive may happen tomorrow,
mm,
that maybe what you perceive may be true because of previous behavior, that's actually got nothing to do with the essence of your upset in the moment. And all that stuff to him is just noise. He doesn't want to know.
sure.
He is concerned about how you feel. He does want to feel your heart and your pain and do what he can to serve you in the moment. But if it's coated with a bunch of crap that's got nothing to do with the moment,
Mm,
it's going to repel him. He's going to be like, I don't need this stuff. I want you, I want to serve you, but I don't need all this stuff that you're tagging onto it because it's not true for this moment.
Now, we haven't in this course yet talked a lot about authentic feeling versus drama. So if I can just give the ladies a little bit of understanding of that, as which will help them with your answer. So authentic feeling is how you authentically feel about something in the moment. But because women often don't express how they feel in the moment, the residue, which you were calling it, builds up. So let's say we're talking and I feel that you're really distracted and not really hearing me, and I don't express my hurt to you and I hold on to it, even if it's a little bit of hurt. Then 10 minutes later, when I realize you haven't put the bins out, I might make a whole drama about the bins, but it's got nothing to do with the bins actually. It's got to do with the fact that I felt hurt and I didn't express it. And I think that it's really important for women to get in touch with their expression and not just learn how to feel fully and express fully, but to discern the difference within themselves. Is this drama I'm giving him, or is this authentic feeling? Because even if they're talking about something that happened at the office, it will feel like drama to you if I'm telling you not how I authentically feel about it, but actually a built-up frustration that I haven't expressed to someone else or to you. And I think men oftentimes don't even know why they're being repelled or why they don't want to be around it, because you and I both know, and all of my ladies know, they've experienced moments where they've expressed how they authentically feel, they've been vulnerable, and their man is drawn towards them.
Yeah.
And that's a very different feeling to when you're quote unquote expressing how you're feeling, but he's repelled. And a lot of times it could be that it's the drama that's repelling him. Authentic feeling tends to inspire more presence and draws him toward you. So I just wanted to give that, since we will be doing that module within the next couple of weeks. So on that question then, let's explore why men tend to hide in their cave. You know, we often talk about a man having a man cave, and I personally think that every man should have a man cave. I think it's invaluable for the man, for his health and well-being, and for the relationship. But if you could give us your take on why men withdraw into some type of man cave, whether it be a shed, a boat, a park, another room, whatever it may be.
Men essentially want peace, stillness, and freedom. They just want a space to be at peace. The essence of the masculine is essentially that. And to a man in his masculine, the feminine is essentially chaos. It's movement, it's noise, it's energy, it's expression. And I know in this moment, again, like when I talked about a man not being interested in relationship, many women on the call will go, well, that's me. I'm feminine. I do that chaos, energy, movement, noise thing. It's part of who I am. I'm not saying he doesn't want that. I'm just saying that there are many times that it serves him and you better for him to have that space so that he can reset and regenerate. He can be with himself to contemplate the day, contemplate the week, contemplate even his own death and life, and what's actually really true for him in his experience of life, as a man serving a family, as a man in a relationship, as a man serving a community and business. He needs to feel that in order to feel deeper into his truth and to give his truth as a gift at a deeper level, to actually be able to serve the world from a better place. He needs to feel into what's true and not true about all those things I've just mentioned. What's real for him, what's bullshit, what he needs to let go of. And this is another reason why men having good friends is a really good service to him, because as we all know, other people can see what we do and who we are much clearer than we are. So for men and women, it's really important to have those friends who can reflect to us whether we're actually on track or whether we need to correct our path. But a man can do a great deal of that by himself through cave time. And if a woman misunderstands his need for cave time or takes it personally that she thinks he's trying to escape her, which he might well be, because she might just be overwhelming him. There might be a lot of emotion going on. There might be stuff going on that's drama. And he's just like, this is drama, this is stuff, this is crap. It's not true. It's not serving us. I need to go and regenerate. And in that, what may best serve the moment is for him to actually say to her, this is drama. What's going on is not actually true for the moment and not serving either of us. You need to go and deal with your stuff. And I'm just going to take some time and settle in myself. And if you have a good understanding of communication within your relationship, and she is actually able to take that on board without taking it as criticism, and actually take it as his offering, providing it's obviously done compassionately and with love, if he can communicate that in the relationship and she understands that he's doing that to serve both of you, then what will actually come to fruition of that will be a deeper connection and a reset and a clearing of whatever was, and a coming into the moment as afresh again. So it's also important to remember that if a man doesn't get that space, and if he comes out too early, then he may actually feel resentful about not having had the time, in the same way that a woman may want the time just to
Be in pleasure,
just to
relax.
lounge around in pleasure with chocolates, in
Absolutely.
a bath, with
Yeah.
roses. And
Well, that's it. I mean, we feel resentful when we've got to cook dinner again and we haven't had time for ourselves. And I think that it's important for women to understand that men feel the same, except that how we top ourselves up is different to a man. You top yourself up in silence. We top ourselves up in fullness. It's a different way of doing it. And even we've talked about hormones before, but just the fact of knowing that a man uses up his testosterone all day, quiet space, quiet time allows him to regenerate that testosterone, and he can bring him and his testosterone to you as a woman, and you're going to be far more satisfied with that. And I don't just mean sexually, but because he has a potency about him again. He's rested, he's clear, he's present, and that's actually what we want from you. So I think it's important for women to remember that that cave time is really, really essential. So thank you, that's great. Okay, so my next question is about communication, men and communication. So why is it that men seem to zone out sometimes when we talk? And I think you've partially answered this just by the fact that, you've talked about us talking a whole lot more than you tend to, and we use a lot more words. But can you touch on this just for us a little bit?
it can be for a number of reasons. Again, it could be what you've just mentioned. It could be that a man really needs what's most important in that moment is to actually have space so he can be present, so he's rested, he's had a chance to regenerate, and he hasn't got stuff on his mind. I mean, as I said earlier on in the call, what's most important to a man in life is his purpose, is his mission. And if he hasn't completed his priorities for that day, his mission for that day, his outcomes, he's going to be distracted. He's not going to be able to be present with you because he's going to have other stuff on his mind. It's like,
Yep.
Unless this conversation is life or death, or, you're really upset about something and I'm drawn into it through your expression of emotion and your authentic vulnerability, then he's not going to want to engage in that, because he's like, I've got a mission to do today. It's more important than this conversation. We are just trying to connect. I appreciate your love. I appreciate your connection. But actually, in my mind, I just want to get completion on this so I can be free of it, and then I can be completely with you.
So what you're saying is that men a lot of times don't get that completion in the day, and so therefore they're carrying it around in their head, can't be present, and therefore kind of that feels like the zoning out?
Yeah, it's important for a man to recognize in himself that perhaps he hasn't got that completion.
Right.
So it's an awareness all round that he perhaps isn't present to the moment because he feels he hasn't done what he needs to do for the day.
Sure.
And that's down to him to organize and structure his day so he gets his stuff done.
Sure.
So that he actually reaches a point of completion and goes, okay, I'm done for the day. My work's done. I've made the money I need to make. I've ticked the boxes. I've built the bridges. Whatever I'm doing today, it's done.
And now I can be with you.
And now I can be with you completely.
Yes.
Otherwise, he is going to be engaged in something else in his mind, potentially.
Sure.
Another reason he may zone out is because of something we touched on a couple of minutes ago, which is that you've gone from an authentic expression of what's really true for you in that moment into a whole bunch of drama. So Again, for the masculine, for a man, it can feel like a lot of effort to keep listening to what's being spoken about. It feels quite often like we're trying to find the point of what's being said. Whereas a woman talks to communicate and to connect, men are most often are more used to communicating to exchange information. So we're quite often listening for the point where there may not be a point. He may not get that your point is that all you want to do is connect with him.
Mm.
And he's actually listening for, what are you trying to tell me, so I can identify it, see if it's a problem, fix it, give you a solution, and close the conversation.
Sure.
That's possibly what's most prevalent in his mind, because that's the frame the masculine comes from,
Sure.
which is very opposite to where the feminine comes from.
Okay, so then if what we want, which I know we do as women, is for you to be present, what is the best way for us to inspire your presence? Because the ladies already so far in this course we've talked about masculine and feminine and that arc of energy that creates passion and connection and intimacy. And clearly, if we direct you, we're in our masculine, so we can't say, be present with me. So, and if we do, then it may have somewhat of an effect, but there's a part of you that's going to be repelled by us. So how do we invite your presence? How do we inspire your presence and sustain that? Even if you have just come home from work and you've still got stuff in your head, or even if you are a little bit tired, or if you are none of those things, but you're just a bit distracted. How do we invite that presence?
I guess it depends on the situation. There are many situations where a man may be distracted elsewhere in his head, or just simply in his head rather than in his body and in the moment in the room. So it could simply be that he's come home from work and that he's kind of vegging out in front of the TV. And part of this is about you making a judgment call as to whether it's best to just let him kind of have a bit of TV time and switch off and chill out for a bit, or whether he has just kind of turned into a couch potato and he needs a bit of a kick up the backside. So in that kind of scenario, you simply have to be more attractive than whatever's in front of him.
Right.
If he's on a mission and a purpose on his computer and he's really, he's got to knock this letter out before 6 o'clock, or he's got to do whatever he's got to do online or on his computer, and you can sense that he's actually got a purpose to what he's doing, then perhaps it's just best to steer clear and let him complete that mission, that action. But if he's just surfing and you feel he's gone past that point of just zoning out for half an hour to be in that space of nothingness, then you simply need to be more attractive than what's in front of him. The TV screen can be very engaging. The computer can be very engaging. There's sound and movement and action and whatever's going on.
Which are all forms of the feminine.
Which are all forms of energy.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all energy. But it's energy contained in a box. I mean, essentially, if a man is given the choice between a box of electronics with some great pictures and sound on it and a delicious, juicy woman, there's no question which he's going to go for. So if you're offering whatever you feel is appropriate in the moment, that may be sexual energy, it may get quite sensual and sexy and I don't know what it could be. It could be teasing, it could be playful, it could be flirting, or it could just be a real soft offering of massage or touch or connection or soft words or anything that you feel is appropriate in the moment. There isn't really an answer. There isn't really a formula to this. For a man, he would want the tick box formula. What are the 3 steps I need to do?
Well, the 7 feminine gifts goes through the 7 feminine gifts, and I think all of those gifts, all of the feeling or the offering of those gifts inspire a man's presence. But as you say, it's about a matter of how do you be artful about that in the moment where he's watching TV or on the computer. And I do want to say, I think what you said about the difference between a man who's purposefully getting something done on the computer and just kind of doing nothing. It's a bit purposeless. We can feel that so obviously. So if you're on purpose, then, and I'm not in a needy moment, if I'm not needing your attention, but if I can see that you're on purpose, then all being well, I'll actually want to leave you alone because I want you to win. I want you to achieve your purpose. It's only when I'm needy that I want to drag you away from that. The thing is that when you're not being purposeful, it feels awful in my body. When you just, it's kind of that slovenly feel, like it's one thing, as you say, half an hour, whatever it is, in front of the TV to zone out and regenerate. But when it's hours upon hours and it's couch potato stuff, then most women will get angry and go, why are you still watching TV? But I think actually it's important for us to understand that we're actually hurt by that because we want to be in relationship with you. We want to connect.
So the other thing to remember with that, which is very important and can again inspire presence, is authentic expression and authentic feedback. No drama, no bullshit, no residue, but real, authentic feedback in the moment. Show him your pain or show him your pleasure.
Yes.
Doesn't really matter if it's true and it's authentic and it really is where you're at in that moment. He's going to love to feel that.
And it gets his attention.
It gets his attention.
Right.
Whether you poke him in the ribs because you're pissed off because he's still watching TV,
Yeah.
or whether you bend over and show him a little bit of cleavage and a bit of a cheeky smile, he's gonna wake up and he's gonna go, well, actually, she's either pissed with me because I'm not with her, and she's telling me how it is with a poke in the side and maybe a few well chosen words that come from the heart.
Yes.
To actually give him the message of, this is what's going on for me with the right language and the emotion that's authentic. Or perhaps it's, come play with me. Surely I'm more interesting than whatever's on the TV, than the football.
Yeah, and once we get to the call in this series about how to express feminine, how you feel authentically rather than drama, then all of this is going to fall into place beautifully for these ladies. So, excellent. Okay. So the next question is, how do I get him to really see me, to want me, to love me for who I am? Because for women today, we are raised as competent, capable, intelligent women. And, I think you and I both agree that most women today, most educated women, could do a man's job quite easily. There's not a lot of differentiation in that regard anymore. And so there are many reasons that women who are dating or who are in relationship may suppress who they really are, whether they feel too intelligent, not intelligent enough, too emotional, not emotional enough. I mean, there are so many reasons that we would hide who we really are, but we actually want to be in a relationship authentically expressing who we are, our power and our strengths, and our vulnerabilities. So how do we get you to see us and want us and love us for all of who we are?
He's chosen you because of who you are, and he will have made that choice, hopefully, and I don't use that word very often, but hopefully because who he has seen in you and who you have presented to him has been the authentic you to the best of your ability.
Yes.
Aside from whatever other expressions may be unnatural or may be conditioned in you or programmed in you to express that aren't quite you, because we all have that. But if he's actually seeing and feeling the truth of who you are because that's how you're expressed, then that's why he's attracted to you. And the more you become aligned to that, or the more that you actually give him the real you, the more he's going to want to be with that real you. Now, although what I'm about to say may be uncomfortable as well, it's something that I've mentioned in previous calls on understanding men. And the truth of a relationship is that in some circumstances, and this could have come anywhere during this call, in some circumstances, it may just be that you find out that who you're with isn't actually the right person for you. So although this question is about a woman wanting to understand why a man would really want her and love her for who she is, we also have to understand that as we go deeper and deeper into this work for both men and for women, that the deeper truths of who we are, the deeper expressions, the truer expression of who we are comes to the forefront of us, just simply through being more and more authentic. And that may engage us deeper in the relationship, or it may actually push us apart. But in answer to your question, the essence of this is about being real. It's about being the real you and being real with him. So again, this comes back to being aware of any drama that you bring to the situation and actually just offering authenticity, authentic feeling to him. And for you to begin to learn to know the difference between your emotional baggage and residue and drama and your authentic feeling. So you're actually giving him the truth of who you are, because you don't want him to love and appreciate something that's not you. There's no point presenting a facade that's not who you are.
Sure. So the same thing goes for a date, yeah?
Sure.
You want to be authentically you on the date, not be pretending to be someone
Yes,
else.
so these games that we tend to play on dates to catch the other person, the guys will be, extra slick and smooth and macho or something just to try and put
Impress.
a impress in some way. And it's the same with ladies. They'll do the same thing in whatever way they may want to effectively manipulate the situation, as we all do on both sides,
Mm.
to try and get an outcome to catch the person that you're on
Yes,
a date with, but it doesn't work in the long term.
absolutely.
It's especially if you actually want an authentic, deep, trusting, intimate relationship.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question I have for you is around trust. So from your perspective as a man, how can I as a woman tell if a man's trustable?
I think the first and most important point in this is trusting in yourself. You know which man you would trust to walk you home, or to pick up your kids, or take care of finances, or to do a particular task.
Mm.
You could easily pick a man out of a room that you'd be happy to walk you home with. Not the one that you're just attracted to and you want to walk you home, but the one that you'd feel safe with, because you know he's trustable. He's not going to harass you. He's not going to jump you. He actually feels safe and trustable in that realm. Now, that same man, you may feel in that same man that you wouldn't trust him with your money because he just feels like a financial mishap. But actually, you know that he's safe. It's a
Sure.
completely different kind of area. But the essence of that is to trust in yourself, that you have the capacity and intuition to make that decision.
Yes.
So that's something that I think a lot of women let go of. They don't seem to have faith in themselves that they can make those decisions. Perhaps because in the past, perhaps because their current experience is tainted by previous decisions
Hmm.
where they may not have made the best decision. But I think also if ladies were to feel back into those prior decisions, and feel into the truth of whether those decisions came from a trust of their own intuition at that point, they'd realize there has to be continuity with this. If you weren't trusting then in yourself, then it's not really fair to judge yourself for not having a good sense of trust.
So what would be the key indicators that would tell me, yeah, this man is trustable, aside from that feeling? Because what you just said, I think is the most important thing for women in terms of trust, is trusting their depth of feeling. And I always say to women that any issues they have around trust with another man is not about the man. It's about not trusting themselves and not having the self-esteem to act on the intuition, on that feeling that they're receiving. So are there key indicators then that would generally say to you, this guy could be trustable?
One of the best key indicators is actually to look at his friends. Who does he hang out with? Who are his best mates? And what are they like? Do they act like a bunch of hooligans when they're together? Do they act like a bunch of really boring, dry, unimaginative guys?
Mm.
Do they call each other on each other's BS?
Yeah.
If one guy's not serving the group, himself, his family, does one of his other men friends go, hey, Jack, listen, what you're doing is really out of order. You know it's not serving you. You know it's going to mess up your relationship with your wife. You need to recalibrate. If he's got a good bunch of men friends, then chances are he's selected those men friends because he wants that feedback,
Mm.
because he is a good man in himself. He's a trustable man, and he has trustable men around him because he's chosen that feedback environment so he can take feedback from those other men and recalibrate in his own life, but also for you to be able to judge his trustability. Do you feel that his decisions are consistent and are made to serve to serve in the highest level, to serve in the highest way, to serve himself, for the betterment of his life, to serve his mission, to serve his purpose, to serve his family, his relationship, whatever the circumstances happen to be? Is he making those decisions from a place of love and respect and service to the situation? Or is it purely self-gain? Is it purely selfish? Is it purely financial? If he's doing something that's really, honorable and trustable, and feels that it's not just a superficial decision, it's actually coming from a place of depth,
Yes.
then that is in itself a trustable characteristic. So another thing would be if he's actually showing up when he says he's going to show up. Is he delivering on time?
Yes.
Is he keeping his appointments? Is he on time for dates? Does he make a plan and stick to it?
Mm-hmm.
All those kind of things are indicators. Does he actually get up in the morning and do his exercises like he says he's going to do?
Right. So commitment and follow through.
Yeah,
Just by
essentially.
seeing what he does in daily life. Okay, good. Thank you. So this is another question that I often get from women, which is, what can I do when he is in a bad mood or he is stressed out? Because a lot of women don't really know how to handle that, just as a man may not know how to handle it if we're stressed out or.
So the first point to remember in this is that it's not necessarily about you. The feminine, whether it's a woman or a child, when feeling a man being upset or stressed or angry, will quite often perceive that it's all about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Kids do it when their parents fight. They think it's their fault, and as women, being in the feminine. Oh, and we should just say that most kids, even boys, young boys, until they reach a certain age, even though they have masculine, feminine, and maybe boys, they will tend to identify more with the feminine than the masculine. We won't go into that here, but just so that they understand why we're talking about that.
That's absolutely right. So it's important to remember that it's most likely not about you. It might be. Chances are it's about something else in life, and he's just got stuff to deal with. He needs time and space to assess what's going on, to cool down, to recalibrate, to reset, whatever it is. And what would probably best serve him is just you doing your best to let go of any feeling that you think that it may be to do with you, and to feel into the truth of what's really going on for him. And if you feel he needs the time and the space, just to allow him that time and space without any hassle, without any pressure. And if he's doing his part of the equation, he'll realize that obviously he can't go and sit in his cave for the next 3 days. He needs to come out within a reasonable period of time. And he should, ideally communicate to you and say, hey, look, I just need a couple of hours. I've had a really crappy day. Stuff's going on. I'm just going to go and do my thing for 2 hours. I'll be with you at 6:30. And that way it's nice and crisp and clear, and it's not about you. He's got stuff to deal with. He's set a time frame because he's aware that obviously he has obligations to prior arrangements or dinner or whatever else is going on that day, and he's just making it nice and clear for you. In an ideal world, his communication will show that he's aware to that degree.
And in fact, when you do that, because I know I've experienced that with you, when we receive that reassurance that, you know what, I just need to deal with this and I'm going to be with you at 5:30, and when you do bring your presence back to us at 5:30, to me, I would much rather have an hour of real presence from you than a whole day of kind of not really present because you're trying to work out this crappy day. So I think it's important for women to understand that there's a benefit in allowing him to have that space, and there's an importance for men to know that when you say you're going to be there at 6:30, be there, because then she'll trust you and she won't feel resentful the next time you want to take it. So it's such a dance between the two. So tell me then, a lot of women that I work with want to reignite the passion, and as a part of that, they really want to know what really turns a man on and what really turns him off, because there are so many catch him and keep him theories, there are so many ways of manipulating to turn him on. But if we're being authentically us, then knowing the distinction between what turns him on and off whilst being authentically us is very, very valuable. So how would you answer that?
Part of this is about understanding the points we brought up throughout this call, which is the differences between masculine and feminine energy, the difference between expression of sound, movement, and energy, and so on, as opposed to clarity, direction, crispness, focus, decision, direction. You know, if you play in the realm of laser sharp focus and decision and direction, it's really not going to do it for him.
Okay.
Unless you're playing in the zone of he wants to be in his feminine and she wants to
Yes.
be in his in her masculine, which again is perfectly viable and somewhere where really some couples should play now and then
Mm.
just to experience the flip side. But if we're staying with a man in his masculine and a woman in his feminine, a man really enjoys sound, movement, expression, sensuality, flow, dynamics of all of those things. So soft sounds, loud sounds, purring to screeching and scratching. I mean, it
Mm.
depends really on his own personal flavors,
Mm.
preferences for flavors. But one of the things to understand about men is that men really want to experience different dynamics of sexual energy from women. So that
Yeah.
could be cool, smooth, soothing energy, or it could be red hot, slutty energy, or it could be divine goddess energy. It could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for him, the more variety of flavors that you can offer to him when it's appropriate, when you feel it's appropriate that will serve him, and when it's coming through you authentically, that's really going to turn him on according to this, according to the situation.
Yeah.
Now that may be uncomfortable for some women. That for me to even mention the word slutty on a call can be certainly push a few buttons.
Sure. Well,
You
that's
know,
part of the work that I do with women
sure.
because, there are some women who contract at the word slutty, and there
Mm,
are some women who open, just like there are some women who contract at the word devotional heart,
mm,
and another woman opens, or motherly energy, or giggly girly energy. I mean, that's part of our wholeness, is to embrace all of who we are and to be able to fluidly express that through our body, through sound and movement, which, like you're saying, makes up for the deliciousness that is the feminine that the masculine wants to taste.
mm.
So it draws you to us, yes?
Yeah, let's think of this another way. Imagine yourself walking through a food hall,
Mm-hmm.
and that food hall has everything from exotic Thai curries through to delicious hot French croissant, through to chocolate dips, through to organic strawberries,
Mm-hmm.
all the different flavors. That's what men want to experience from women. That's why
Mm.
suddenly, when he's in the street and he's with you, you feel his attention go to some
Yeah.
teenage blonde because she just has that, you know,
There's an energy
that
there.
certain type of young, fresh energy that she has
Mm.
that he can certainly feel from you,
Mm-hmm.
but perhaps he's not experiencing from you with any regularity in the same way that he may be attracted to a totally different type of dark, slutty energy from a woman that you may prejudge
Mm.
because of your own frame around the word slutty or the energy that that type of woman might give off. But it's going to push a button in him that every now and then it's going to really do it for him. He's going to be turned on by that.
And I think this is really important for both men and women to understand, that just as if a woman uh, notices a man who's really, I don't know, let's say really strong in his purpose, or really buff, or whatever it is, a certain flavor of the masculine. For us, it's a little bit different, but there are certain aspects of the masculine that we may be wanting from our partner but not experiencing. Then our head will turn. Well, it's the same. Knowing that that's the same for the masculine is very liberating for us as women, because now that I know that for example, with you, if I see your head turn or I notice that you are more present when a particular movie star is on the screen, it doesn't mean that I say to myself, oh dear, I'm not enough of that. There's no insecurity. I just think to myself, oh, that's interesting. He's being awakened by that energy. And just within lovemaking, it doesn't mean I have to dress up like she's dressed up or I be inauthentically like that person, that woman. But just bringing in that flavor, I've played with that with you, where I've brought in that energy into lovemaking or into a moment of intimacy. And without a doubt, it draws your presence even more. So I think it's important for women and men not to take it personally when the head turns. When you're in a committed, loving relationship, you can actually go, oh, that's interesting. The head turned there. And if you are repulsed by that, or repelled, or you judge that energy, then to me that's the perfect time to actually explore a part of yourself that you have been up until now without realizing it, ashamed of, or judged negatively. And by integrating that part of yourself, by loving that part of yourself, it doesn't mean you then need to be that energy for the rest of your life, but you integrate a part of yourself and it brings or it deepens wholeness.
Yeah, the other side of that to recognize is that everyone has sexual fantasies, and a man may well have some sexual fantasies that he feels uncomfortable about sharing with you, simply because he feels there may be some prejudgment from you around that. Now, he may not necessarily want or need to physically express and experience those fantasies in the real world. It doesn't mean he's got to go and find
three women,
three women,
blonde, redhead, and a brunette,
and a dwarf, or whatever happens to be his thing. I mean, everyone has their own thing, and some are a little more bizarre than others. But that's the whole point. If he has got something that really pushes his buttons, and he feels completely unable to express that within the relationship, even if it's just in a conversation, he may well be drawn to external stimulus, whether it be porn on the internet, or whether it be actually engaging other people in this outside the relationship, with or without your knowledge. But if he feels safe and accepted from being able to talk about whatever his thing is with you, that in itself may be enough sharing of expression and joined experience in the conversation for it to be dissolved.
Sure.
Just that it's actually that he knows he can talk about whatever his thing is with you, and you won't go, oh, you freak, that's a bit weird.
That's
or
right.
you won't be repelled, or you won't think he doesn't love you because he wants to do it with some woman dressed up as God knows what. It's not personal. It's just a thing.
Well, also, some of the women that I've coached have talked about their partners having fantasies, and you and I have done this work with couples where if the male partner has a fantasy about the schoolgirl thing, right? It doesn't mean he wants to sleep with a schoolgirl. It's just that flavor of energy he's craving.
Exactly right.
And if the woman is able to actually give schoolgirl energy through her womanly body and her loving heart within that committed relationship, very often that fantasy just kind of dissolves because it's just a form of love he's craving, and it's through that energy. So can you tell me, I'm thinking that the ladies, because there's so much wonderful information about what turns him on, what are the key things if you were to look at a woman in terms of how she's standing, how her body feels to you, her radiance, her tone of voice, those kinds of things that are very practical for a woman?
I tell you what, the simplest thing that a woman can do to be attractive to a man is smile.
Right.
Really, if you were to ask a bunch of guys, you'd expect all sorts of bizarre and perhaps obscene responses.
Sure.
But actually, it's just a smile. It's an opening of energy.
And
it's an invitation.
Yes.
But beyond that, it's softness. It's a letting go of tension. It's a relaxation. It really is an offering of an invitation of feminine energy, and that can be, as I said, through movement, through sound. So the opposite of that straight face, stillness, tension, rigidity,
Mm.
square movements as opposed to flowing movements,
Yes.
walking in a straight line very rigidly instead
Which is
of
all very masculine,
yeah,
purposeful,
instead
right?
of swinging your hips and tossing your hair around and
And again, I think because a lot of women, I know these women, and so they're going to say, well, swinging my hips and tossing my hair, that's all a little bit
a little
inauthentic.
bit fake.
But it's not when it's you relaxing into the natural flow of your own hips, and when it's actually allowing the breeze to blow through your hair rather than trying to control it, which is a more masculine,
Mm.
rigid thing. So,
Yeah, it has to be natural. But ladies, let me tell you this. Men are really, really simple creatures to please.
yeah.
For real. I mean, Lisa is constantly surprised at when she'll think she has to do this whole complicated thing to get my attention, and it has to be, this whatever it is to get my attention. And all she has to do is simply come up to me and, drape her hair across my shoulder and giggle a bit and press her breasts against my body and snuggle up nice and close. And all of a sudden, I've just completely melted because
Mm.
it's absolutely authentic and coming from her. It's not contrived. It's not an act. It's just her being her authentic, playful self in that moment, or her dark expression, or her innocent, vulnerable expression, whatever it is.
Mm.
It's whatever's true for you in the moment, but
Through your feminine body.
through your feminine
That's the
body,
key.
but authentically.
Yes, and that's why I am. There are times when you'll say, "Wow, you are beautiful," and I might have turned around and just told you to fuck off,
Yeah.
with real feminine expression and an open heart, not nastily. But you might have done something, and I might say, "Oh, fuck off," but with an open heart and with actually an invitation.
I love the way you're swearing more and more these days.
And yet at the same time, the
But it's
other
authentic. That's the
exactly,
thing.
and with an open heart and through feminine body, and that can be an invitation just as much as, the snuggling up
Mm.
or, a little bit of cleavage. None of it is contrived in order to get your attention.
Mm.
It's simply that I'm not hiding a part of myself. I'm not
That's
hiding
exactly
my
it.
cleavage or hiding my fuck off.
Yeah, that's the whole point. The expression, the swearing and the expression of fuck off is not taken as an insult. It's actually what I recognize in that is an expression of the darker side and a level of comfort with you going more and more into that.
Hmm.
And dark sexual energy is what really does it for a man. Essentially, to really push a man's buttons, and it's a zone that can be very uncomfortable for women and for men because we're all very suppressed in sexuality in the Western world. It's essentially dark sexual energy expressed authentically through the woman
With an open heart.
with an open heart that is really going to be most engaging and attractive to a man. And that doesn't mean that it has to be that all the time.
Mm.
He wants the whole spectrum. He wants to experience the whole spectrum. And for you, you need to also express the whole spectrum to be the fullness of who you are.
And I think for the ladies to really appreciate this realm of dark sexual energy, it's something that we would have to explore quite expansively, because some women and men would immediately kind of go, what's that?
Mm.
But if I could give a very simple example, it's the difference between rape, which is dark with a closed heart and from a place of fear, to ravishment. So when a man ravishes a woman he loves, he claims her in love, and that's very, very different to something like rape. Well, equally, I could say fuck off in a way that's very bitchy, very vindictive. That's dark energy, but it's not with an open heart. It's not in with the intention of awakening you, inspiring you, and playfully. It really is about being playful and love. And I think that we can get the wrong end of the stick with when we talk about dark energy, but actually dark sexual energy, when you explore it with playfulness and love and an open heart and with deep respect there are ways that it can open the relationship. It doesn't mean anything bad. Dark energy is not bad. It is bad when it's closed and it's from a place of fear and trying to get power over someone, like rape. But when you ravish the woman you love, that's a very different feeling, and yet it's darker energy. It's different to tender, light lovemaking. Being ravished is dark energy, and yet it opens the other person. So we can explore that more on another call. Okay, so tell me, what is it that inspires a man's deepest love and commitment for real? Because we hear a lot of stories about it, but if we want to be authentically us without manipulation, then tell me, what is it that inspires a man's deepest love and commitment for real?
Well, a man really wants to feel appreciated and trusted and accepted for all he is, just as you do. It's very easy to forget, I guess, that men are human too. You know, women have a much more vibrant and vital experience of life and are much more engaged in life. So,
which is why you want to be in a relationship with us in the first place, because you get to experience the juice of life through us.
Because a man doesn't really get to experience that, because his experience is having a very insensitive experience of the world, doesn't really get to feel the world.
Because of that observer modality, yeah?
But also because we just simply aren't that sensitive. Our bodies and our emotions and our awareness is nowhere near as sensitive and as fine-tuned as a woman's.
Right.
We can't even begin to imagine. I'm constantly amazed by the things that I experience and that I learn about women's experience of the world and of men. But another thing that's really important is to recognize that he wants to be recognized, that he has something to give the relationship. He wants the space to be appreciated and to be able to give his gift, so that it doesn't feel surplus to the relationship. It doesn't feel like you're doing everything or taking care of everything. You know, I've been in a relationship before where it really wasn't a polarized relationship. There wasn't that arc of energy between myself and my partner most of the time. And she was a very independent woman, and she took care of a lot of stuff, and I just kind of felt a bit surplus. So that certainly doesn't work for a man if you want a man to stick around.
I think what's important there, though, is that you know, we are capable, and I think
I'm not denying that at all.
Yeah, so there's the difference between knowing that we're capable and, you know, shared responsibility, for example, around the house, but not carrying that into the bedroom or not taking over everything, actually giving him the space to be the provider, to win, so to speak. Is that right?
He really wants to feel that he has the opportunity to provide for the relationship, to provide for the family if there is a family, and to win, exactly as you say. It's a really big part of a man's makeup to actually feel like he's taking part in something, giving his gift, and actually having success in that as well. So other things that would be part of an answer to this question are really what you've outlined in the 7 Gifts program, which is fantastic. So offering a man your pleasure, your sexual energy, as we've discussed during the call, is, if it's authentic, something that he really wants to engage in and be bathed in, you know, to actually be engulfed in the deliciousness of feminine pleasure.
Well, I think it's important to understand that it's not just sexual pleasure either, because I know that when we first met, one of the things you said to me was, I love going out to dinner with you. And I said, well, why? And you said, because when you eat something delicious, your whole body, like, you know, I love food. I mean, I used to have a restaurant. I love food. So when I eat something delicious, I go, oh my God, oh, this is delicious. Now,
in fact, if we recorded you, we wouldn't know whether you were having
dinner
or having sex.
Because I love food, and I feel it. I feel the pleasure move through my body, and these sounds just come out. So it's not necessarily sexual pleasure, it's pleasure of life, you know, the experience of walking out into a beautiful sunny day and going, oh, wow, isn't that beautiful? That sort of pleasure, I think, is also very inspiring for the masculine, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another thing that is a big piece for a man is to be trusted.
Right.
Is that you as a woman have trust in him, in his ability to make good decisions, and to let him follow through on those decisions
Yes.
and take care, and know that he can actually trust that he can take care and that he has a good sense of what is appropriate and necessary, and that he gives good guidance to you and has a good sense of guidance for you as a unit or you as a family,
Sure.
and that you trust that. Um, Something to bear in mind that can take away from commitment in a relationship or from a deepening of a relationship is a sense of neediness
Yes.
that can certainly repel a man in a certain situation. He doesn't want to feel that neediness. That's residue, it's baggage, it's got nothing to do with your authentic feeling,
Yeah, I
really.
agree.
It's from other stuff that isn't really to do with an authentic expression of feeling or pain or hurt in the moment.
Yeah, and neediness is a big one for women because, of course, we want love. But if we can trust who we are and the love that we have within us, then we can come from a place of fullness rather than neediness. That's definitely our stuff that needs to be sorted out in order to enter into a relationship more fully. So,
Mm. And again, authentic feedback. I mean, it's really invaluable for a man to have a woman that he trusts as well, a woman that he knows him better than he knows himself, a woman that he knows is going to love him and praise him and offer him absolute honor, um, for him being the best that he can be, but is also going to give him hell if he messes up.
yeah,
But only, from a place of
with a
love,
yes,
not just for the sake of creating drama or for creating tension or
or
for
criticizing.
pleasure or for criticizing or for
Yeah,
the fun that some women have in destroying men through,
mm,
certain ways of manipulating them emotionally. That's not what it's about. It's about him really feeling from you that you're saying what you're saying or doing what you're saying. That you're saying what you're saying or doing what you're doing from a place of love, to offer him your feminine feedback as guidance for him to go, hey, okay, I fucked up. That doesn't work. It's wrong. It's not serving.
because we want you to be the best man
Because
you
you
can
want to be the
be.
best you can be.
Yeah.
And that cuts both ways. You both want to be in a relationship to serve the other person, to be the best that you can be, and to offer your feedback, your loving feedback, artfully, creatively, with humor, to deepen the relationship and deepen yourself and the other person in the best way that you can.
Mo, thank you so much for joining us for this call. It's been amazing, as always. I love doing this call with you, not only because I get to gain a deeper understanding of men and of you as my man as we do these calls, but also because I know that everything that we've explored on this call will be of such value to the women listening. So thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to explore all these questions with you. Um, and some of these questions come up often, and some of them are kind of new angles on the same kind of challenge areas. But I trust that what we've shared on the calls has been of real service to the women listening, and that you can go on and take those learnings into your lives, into your relationship with men, and with compassion and love and humor and art, use these insights to deepen your experience of life with the men in your lives.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.